Alright, I'm now going to go over the photo editing and retouching options in the toolbar. What I would like to do is go ahead and open a new picture. You can leave the one that you have up from your selections on the screen. If you already closed it, you don't need to worry about opening it again. What I'm going to do is have you guys select the picture that says Puyallup Bear 18. Kind of a terrible look on my face, but that's kind of the point. We are going to do a little photo editing, retouching of my picture. I wanted to choose one that's a little closer up, okay, so you can really see the difference in how the photo editing software tools work. So we're going to start with the first tab. If you click and pull to the right, you'll notice that there are several different correction tools. There's the red eye tool, which obviously is for red eye. It's not the best tool. There's also content aware move tool. You don't need to use that ever. Then there's the patch tool and the healing brush tool. What we're going to use to start with is just the patch tool. If you remember in class, I showed you a lot of different pictures where ladies had freckles or men had blemishes and they all just seemed to disappear. This is one of the tools that does that best. Okay, so the way that the patch tool works is, if you look right here, I have some kind of freckles or discoloration, I guess, whatever you want to call it. If you click with your mouse and circle the portion that you want to change, or say there was a blemish, you can click and drag it to another portion of my face, and it will automatically heal that part of it. If there were a very specific blemish or something you wanted to get rid of, this is the best way to do it. And you just can continue to select the portions you want, get rid of any sort of thing. So what I'm going to show you is how you can make a Photoshop look very photoshopped. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of the wrinkles on my head, which is going to look unnatural because they're there because of the face that I'm making. But I want you to see how this patch tool really works. I'm selecting the places where my wrinkles are, and sometimes it's not the best tool. It doesn't always work perfectly, but as you can see, it just slowly gets rid of all of those wrinkles on my forehead. You want to use this carefully, so you might have to go back and check. You can see there it made kind of an odd shape, but in general that is what people use this tool for. If you wanted to get rid of some puffiness under your eyes or some dark shadows, see, that one didn't work. It's not always super successful. Control-Alt-Z will allow you to go back more than one step. Okay, Control-Alt-Z if you want to go back more than one step. Okay, again, the patch tool, if I come down here, I want to get rid of that little dimple on my chin. It's essentially used for blemishes, changing wrinkles, any sort of thing. Maybe you have a wrinkle in your shirt you wanted to get rid of, or weird shape on, whatever it might be. The patch tool will read what you've encircled and it will replace it with a portion that you move it to. So that is how the patch tool works. The healing brush is similar, okay, but the purpose of the healing brush, okay, and the size of your brush can be changed right up here, okay, by moving this back and forth. So what you can do with the healing brush is, if you hold Alt, it gives you a target. You click on what you want to heal, and then you click around it. Excuse me, I said that backwards. You click on what you want to heal it with. So let's say I wanted to get rid of this darkness under my eyes. I would click in a place where there isn't darkness. So right there it's not dark. So I'm holding Alt on my keyboard, and it gives me the target, and I click. And then I can use that, and I just click right over the top of those dark circles. Again, I'm going to hold Alt, I get a target, I click my mouse, and then I can click over the portions that I want to go away. And I can continue doing that. If I were to move down here to, say, my nose, or maybe around my lips, I would want to hold Alt again so that the color matches something close to it. So I would get close to the wrinkle I wanted to get rid of, and I could completely get rid of those tools. So it's similar to the patch tool in that it's reading the background color, The difference is it gives you a round shape for how you can change it. The patch tool allows you to select whatever area you would like. So you select the area you want to correct with the patch tool. You drag to the area you want to replace it with. With the healing brush, it is the opposite. You go to the area where you like, so go to the skin color you like, you hold Alt and click your mouse, then you use that skin color and you place it over the top. This is taking what you read, you can see my little white circle there, and it's combining it with the area you're clicking on. That is why it's called a healing brush. It's making a kind of a calculated combination of the two areas to give you the best look possible. The next tools you have, there's the brush tool. This is exactly the same as it is in InDesign. All it does is literally allows you to paint over the top of the picture. This is not a super highly used tool in Photoshop. It's something more you would use in Illustrator or InDesign. The pencil tool does the same thing. It's just a thinner line. Looks more like a pencil than a brush stroke. This one is called the History Brush Tool. We don't use that ever. You can, if you find a tutorial on how you'd like to use it, you're welcome to explore it a little bit more, but it's not something that is super useful. The next tool is going to be the clone stamp. Okay, and it's very similar in what it does when you're looking at the healing brush and the patch brush. But what we're going to do is we're going to zoom out. The healing and the patch tool are really used for skin tones, hair, different things like that. The clone stamp is great for taking things out that you didn't want. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this guy right here and I'm going to make him essentially go away. I'm going to blend the gray ground over to the edge, and then I'm going to kind of repeat this right there. So the clone stamp will take a picture of a portion of your canvas. So just like with the healing brush, you're going to hold Alt over the part you want to copy. Okay, I want to copy this gray over the top of this guy. So I will hold Alt, I will click, and then I can begin to cover him up. The clone stamp is something that takes a little bit of practice, so you definitely want to take a minute, maybe pause the video and try it out for all of these tools actually. What you'll do is you continue holding Alt and then you click, and you can go to different areas of the canvas to make different clones. You don't want it to look photoshopped, so you have to vary where you click. So I might click up here by holding Alt on the keyboard and then clicking with my mouse. And since it's a pretty blurry background, it makes this a lot easier. This can be used for things like power lines. If you don't want to have a power line going through your picture, you can do it in the sky. Or maybe there's a particular cloud and it's really drawing too much attention. You want to make it go away. The clone stamp is really useful for using on the background. I will continue using Alt. And what it does is it's simply taking a picture of what's already there, and as I click, it will repeat that. So I can continue hitting Alt and coming over to get rid of it. Notice as I move down, I hold Alt and I use the color right next to it. If I held Alt up here and then I come in and add it, it starts to look photoshopped because the colors don't match as well. So you always want to clone from something very close to what you're trying to cover up. And I do lots of mouse clicks just to make it less obvious. And I continue to click over. And again, I'm choosing a portion of the picture that isn't really important, so most people are not going to notice that it's been photoshopped. If we really wanted to, we could even go to the extent of taking all of the people out. But for now, I just want you to practice doing the patch tool. Try taking a couple of wrinkles off of my face, and then I would like you to do the Photoshop and completely remove the guy on the left-hand side so that I know you've tried this out. Underneath the clone stamp, you have the pattern stamp. Also not super useful unless you wanted to give like a crazy cloud stamp in the background. You might use it. I would suggest you find a tutorial on that if it's interesting to you. The next thing is the eraser tool. It's exactly what it sounds like. It will come in and erase. Also, a quick step on how you can make your brushes bigger without having to go up here and moving them around. Anytime you have something that is some sort of brush, you can hit the bracket keys on your keyboard. If you notice, as I hit the bracket keys, it makes my circle bigger or smaller. That's the bracket keys. It's right underneath the backspace if you would like to do that. So with your eraser tool, it erases. And whatever color is showing right here on your screen is the color that's going to show up in the background. Now you can turn down the opacity and the flow of the eraser. Maybe you don't want to erase the whole thing. Maybe you wanted to erase out the sky at a low opacity so it looks darker, or maybe you wanted to add in a cloud behind it. Just know that on all of these options you have the ability to turn down or up the opacity. If you go to the clone stamp, same thing. Maybe you want to clone something but you don't want to completely cover it up. You just want to make it softer. Opacity and flow can be played around with all of these tools right over here. So whenever you're trying to do something and you're not sure exactly how dark you want it to be, try playing around with these opacity and flow just to see how it works. I'll get more specific with that with the tutorials coming. So you have your eraser tool. None of these are super relevant to us, so we'll just go with the eraser tool. Your fill tool and your gradient tool, same as in InDesign. If you have this layer selected, what's going to happen with your paint bucket is it's similar to your magic wand tool. It's only going to change the colors that are similar to what I selected. So since my jacket is kind of black, it's going to fill all of the colors that are similar in that black. You can turn down the tolerance up here. This is something you can also do in selection tools, and it will only select a certain portion of it. That's not something that's used very frequently. Most likely you will make a selection and then use a fill color in the selection that you would like. But that's how the fill color will work. If it's a blank layer, you can just do a straight fill and it will fill the entire background. Same thing with the gradient. If I wanted to add a gradient, it would, I guess with the gradient it will go over the entire project. So that would completely cover up my picture, so we wouldn't want to do that. The next tool is called the Blur and Sharpen and Smudge tool. This could be helpful if, say, you wanted to blur out the background. Obviously in the picture we've chosen, the background is completely blurred already, so it's not necessarily something that we would want to use. But I will show you, if you choose the Blur tool, you have Strength up here to show you how blurry you could make it. I'm going to make my brush bigger. I'm hitting the bracket keys on my keyboard, and if I wanted to blur out my face, the more I click, the blurrier it gets. So on your tutorial, if you want to try it and just make my face nice and blurry, or make some portion of it blurry just so I can see that you figured it out. The Sharpen tool obviously does exactly the opposite. It will make a portion of the picture quite a bit sharper. You have to be careful with this tool because it can also make it look unnatural. And keep in mind that it's not going to sharpen this back to reality, obviously, because the picture started off blurry. So the Sharpen tool is just to enhance it. If you look, I'll zoom in on what it did to my hair. You can see that it kind of almost makes it grainy to a certain extent. But essentially it just makes it look sharper and more crisp. And you can see that this area right here where the Blur tool blurred things out. Okay. The next tool underneath there is the Smudge tool. This is similar to the Liquify tool, but it essentially just moves portions of your picture around. If I were to say want to smudge out my hair to make it look like it's flowing, okay, it creates exactly what it sounds like. It takes the picture and it's like running your finger through it. It smudges it. Okay, the last tool under here is the Dodge and Burn tool. The Burn tool is going to take what you have right there in your picture and it's going to make it darker. Okay, it's essentially an exposure tool. If you had something overexposed that was too bright and you use the Dodge tool, it takes what's already there. It doesn't just darken the picture entirely. It just darkens what already exists. So you can see that it's making my hair quite a bit darker. This is for areas if maybe you had a weird highlight and you just don't want to see it anymore. This will allow you to burn. Remember, burn, things burn, they turn into char. That's how I remember the difference between burn and dodge. And so obviously the Dodge tool does the opposite. It will brighten a certain area. So if you say wanted to brighten up your eyes, or maybe your teeth, or maybe you have like a large forehead and it creates an odd shadow on your face, it will help you to brighten up the picture. Okay? The last option underneath there is called the sponge tool. We won't use that. That is all of the options under the edit. Clearly they can be used well or they can be used poorly. Please make sure to save this as a Photoshop document. I'd like you to save file, save as. I would like for you to save it into your own personal folder under Project 2. And I would like for you to save it under your tutorials. And what you want to do is you want to rename it, and it needs to be called Editing and Retouching. And it should be saved as a Photoshop document. So Photoshop is .psd, and you should hit save. It may take a few minutes to save. Once it is done, you can close it if you would like. You can continue editing it, playing around with the tools that I gave you, but each of you should have a Photoshop document when you are finished.